Athelstan, king, lord of earls, ring giver to men, and his brother also, the atheling Edmund, lifelong glory, struck in battle with sword's edge at Brandenburg, broke the shield wall, hewed linden wood, with hammers leaving. Edward's sons, as they were noble born, accustomed to battle, often on campaign had defended their land from each foe, horde, and home. The hated ones were crushed, people of the Scots, men of the ships fated fell. The field was slick with men's blood, and when the burning sun in the morning time, mighty star, glided up over ground, God's bright candle, the eternal Lord's, till the noble work sank to its setting. Many a man lay wrecked by spears, northern warrior shot over shield. So Scots also were sated with war. West Saxons went forth all the day long on the enemy's tracks, hewing the fleeing forces from behind with blades new sharpened. No stroke did the Mercians refuse to pay in the hard hand play with any who with Olaf over seas swell in the ship's lap sought land, fated to fall. 5 lay dead on the field, young kings put to sleep with the sword. So also 7 of Olaf's earls, and numberless slain among shipmen and Scots. The Northman's lord was put to flight, forced by need to his ship with small company. Keep pressed sea. The king went out on fallow flood, saved his life. So also the old one fled away to his northern country. Constantine, hoary battle man, he need not boast of the meeting of swords. He was severed from kin, deprived of friends on that field, slain at war, and left his son on the death ground, destroyed by his wounds, young at war. He need to have no proud words, the white-haired warrior, the wily one, about striking edges, nor Olaf either. With the remnants of an army, they need not laugh at that their battle work was better where standards crossed and spears clashed in the meeting of men. When on the death field they played with the sons of Edward. The Northmen went off in nailed ships, sad survivors of spears, on Ding's Mere over deep water, seeking Dublin, Ireland again, ashamed in their hearts. So the brothers, both together, king and atheling, sought their country, the land of Wessex, exulting in war. They left behind them, sharing the dead, the dust-dressed ones, the black raven with hard beak of horn, and hoary-coated eagle, white-tailed, eating the carrion, greedy warhawk, and that grey beast, the wolf of wood. Nor was more slaughter on this island ever yet, so many folk felled, before this fight with sword's edge, as say the books, the old wise men, since from the east Anglo and Saxon came together over broad sea, seeking Britain, who overcame the Welsh, eager for glory, and gained a land. That, friends, was the entry for the year 937 in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. This particular version, as you can see, is quite large in size, and it is translated and collated by Anne Savage. Now, this was my first time reading through the entire Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. I had an idea of what I was getting myself into. Essentially, this was one of the longest recorded series of histories that had been conducted to that point. It starts in the, let's see here, like the 400s with the Roman occupation of England. Year 1. So it starts with year 1 and it goes all the way to like 1154, something like that. So it's over 1,000 years of history that it covers for the island of England. And the spectrum of what is entailed in these entries varies vastly. Now, I read to you one of the most gripping accounts. There's battle, there's war, there's leaders, there's people falling. And those are the exciting ones to read. They're super engrossing and they have a lot of good detail in terms of what was going on. But it all is based upon what the chroniclers were recording. And you can see here, I mean, the early ones are very, very short. You know, for some years, the only thing that was worth noting was something along the lines of what they recorded for the year 671. There was the Great Death of Birds. That was the notable event for the year. The whole year, it was the Great Death of Birds. There's an entry in here that this was the hard winter. As if it was a winter so memorable that just saying the hard winter, everybody just kind of smiles and nods, and it's like, yeah, I remember that one. And, you know, it's interesting seeing the range, because you go like year 656 is that long, but then you come over here to the other side, and ones like 671 are 7 words in length for the year's entry. And it makes for an interesting dynamic in reading it, because some of them will go super fast and others take a long time. The real star of the show in this book are pages like this, where you get some pieces of history, some images. There's lots and lots of images spread throughout, and usually things that the Anne Savage has put together that regard in more detail some of the events, some of the people going on around those times. So you've got all kinds of really, really good information inside of this one volume. And I love that, because it's got value beyond just the text itself. It's broken down into, I think, 5 parts. Yeah, 5 parts throughout history. So it's got a lot of good stuff in there. It's got some stuff at the end on Anglo-Saxon poetry. One of my favorite things in all of these kinds of books comes at the very end, usually with a bibliography, so you can see some of the books that maybe inspired the author or translator, in this case, the translator, editor, compiler of this book, and the books that she was looking at, as well as it's got a section with further reading. So not only the bibliography of what she used, but also if you're interested in learning more, here's some other things you can go do. And you can tell a lot from these kinds of books by looking at this part of the book and seeing what sources they did use in this. Are they contemporary sources? Are they ones that are the staples of talking about the text dating back through history, but nothing of the time when everything was written? And you look at the bibliography here, and we've got 2-volume Anglo-Saxon Chronicle according to several authorities that was written in 1861. I mean, they've got some supplementary extracts from 1892, so some good information on various things. Concise Oxford Dictionary of English Place Names. So some good stuff that they use as a reference, as well as the further reading has just got a wealth of books that, if I had unlimited funds and time, it'd be a big rabbit hole to go down. But you would take that and say, okay, I want each one of these, order it in, and read through those. But every one of those would then have more of those, which would then have more of those, which would then have more of those, and you would never get to an end. But inevitably, at some point in time, you'd start to see repetition of some of these things coming across, which is what is fun and exciting about this. Is even if you don't know much about the Anglo-Saxon period and the history of it, this is a good starting point, because this is going to give you the overview of kind of the highlights year to year to year. It's not being told in any kind of a narrative. It's not really, most of them are just passing along information. There's somewhere, it's land allotment, and this is how we measured the land, and this is all the people that were present to sign for it. Sometimes it's this person died. Sometimes a year just doesn't have an entry in there at all. But this particular volume, for what it adds beyond just the text, is definitely worth having, because it's got, again, the pictures, the extra commentary and stuff throughout. Now, the one thing that I wish it did have is inside the text itself, there's nothing but the text, which is good for a reading copy. Like this, that makes this great for somebody that just wants to read it. But there's no footnotes, there's no clarifications on who somebody is. Now they've got different maps and charts and genealogies in the beginning and end of this, but by and large, as you're reading it, there's nothing to interrupt that flow of reading, but there's also nothing to, well, what on earth is that? You'd have to stop and pretty much go hop on Google to do a casual layman's search of what this place, what this figure, what this event, the battle is that they're referring to, because again, this is people writing these during this time. And it was started by the monks during the reign of King Alfred. And so you can tell at what point in time it shifts from having usually sparse entries, and then they start having longer and longer and longer entries. And from King Alfred on, the entries are pretty good in length and detail for most of the years. Obviously, there are going to be some years that are less remarkable. So this is a hard one to rate. I don't think that you can put a rating to this. It's a great piece of history. It's something that not everybody's going to want to pick up and read because it's not going to be palatable to every type of reader. But if you are looking for an Anglo-Saxon Chronicle copy, or if you're interested in learning more about the history during those 1,000 years of England's history, this is a good volume to grab because it has that good information throughout in addition to the text itself. So that's my review. I won't give it any kind of a star rating because I don't feel that this one can necessarily get a star rating, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It was my BookTube spin number 2 result. So I'm happy to have gotten that finished before the end of June, which was the deadline. I had 2 months to get through it and read the vast majority of it this month, although I did start on it a little bit the previous month. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned because tomorrow I'll be back with the E and F tags as well as a review of The Pilgrim's Regress by C.S. Lewis.